right, surprise. We're here and are doing the video today. Um, I told Chase that was, and we were just talking about this 5 seconds ago, so we're going to have the exact same conversation again. Chase, sorry. But I told him, I was like, that was
Sorry.
the perfect amount of time to not make it seem like we were lying. Um, it's like it's not too far in advance that people know we're fucking with them, but not too short where it's like no big deal. It's enough to get mad. And you said you spent a long time debating how long
Yeah,
to
I,
say.
more time than a joke that's that stupid really needed. But yeah, trying to come up with how much time is appropriate for this that's
Yeah,
believable. But
I think it was. I think it was for sure the right length of time. So, um,
perfect.
but we're here. So 103 and 104. I want to. We'll do them one at a time, and then I kind of want to talk about some of the stuff that we DM'd about a little bit, kind of before we get to 104. Some of the stuff he told me. So, um, I was yelled at for not. So last year I got flamed for not having the draft pick sound, and then I remembered that after the first pick this year, and I was like, okay, well nobody said anything, so I won't do it for Flynn. And then I got yelled at today, so I'm going to play the draft sound in the background, and then you'll say the things, and I'll push the button on our end. So,
Okay,
all
okay.
right, 103. Oh, I got to unmute the video. Damn it, it's a disaster. Start over. Okay, right here we go. You can't hear it. All right, go ahead.
Oh,
103. Go ahead, Chase. What do we got?
103 is Malik Neighbors, wide receiver, New York Giants.
Yeah. So, why is this messed up? Oh no. Don't mind me fixing the stream in the middle of this. I'm a failure. Malik Neighbors. So, one of the things I wanted to talk about was when we were talking about picking between, 103 and 104. You kind of not had hesitance on 104, right? But you were like, yeah, 103 is Malik Neighbors, and I'll let you know about the other one. You were kind of debating between a few people, but then interestingly enough, you also were saying that you had, was it one team or two teams who were talking to you about coming up to 104? Would love for you to share as much as you want to share without making anybody upset. But who were those teams that you were talking to? Why did the trade talks fall apart? Was it just you valued somebody here more than they did, or they weren't willing to pay enough, or what's that look like?
Um, yeah, it was more the latter. They were never very serious talks, but we briefly I briefly talked with Morgan and Project about kind of coming up to 104. Neither was very serious. I think Morgan and I talked a little bit longer, but I think in the end he didn't really want to spend much at all to get up to 104, which I totally understand.
Yeah,
Um, I have three, all three of the quarterbacks to me are pretty equivalent. So I also wouldn't want to pay a lot to get into that spot, but
right.
I was hoping someone else might have a different opinion.
Was he looking to move up from 105 and just go up the one spot, or was he trying to come up from what's now 108, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, it was. This was more something that I started than him, so I don't know that he was
Okay.
really looking to come up at all. But yeah, the idea was a 104 to 105 swap, and then something tiny coming back my way.
Yeah. And it just didn't come to fruition. What about Project? A similar story of just saying, "Hey, are you interested?" And that was kind of it.
Yeah, I don't even remember how far that one got. To be honest, I know we talked for 3 messages back and forth, and I don't remember if I don't even know he may not have been interested at all.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
because I remember you mentioned that, and then very quickly thereafter, you're like, "Never mind. I think I'm picking at 104 here." But you were kind of debating. You said we won't say who just yet. I don't have the draft sound ready. But
sure.
you were saying, um, I think the phrase that you used was, "I'm going to take this one, but I might overthink it and take the other one." But you said
Yeah,
kind of all the quarterbacks are in the same tier. Now, when you say all the quarterbacks, are you talking? Obviously, the two big names next up are oh my God, Jaden Daniels and Drake May. Um,
yep.
do you have do you have another break between Penix, Nix, or do you kind of also have them in a similar tier, or
I put McCarthy up in that tier
and
with the other
JJ?
two.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah,
Yeah, I think because of I mean I think I viewed him as the worst prospect of the three, but I think playing with Kevin O'Connell, throwing to Justin Jefferson, that's worth quite a bit.
Yeah.
Whereas the other two are in relatively shitty situations. So I think that makes them all roughly equivalent. I think the other two are better talents, but it helps to throw to Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, no, it does. And then not only that, Hawkinson and Addison is your number 2 and 3 options. I think Aaron Jones is going to do pretty well there as well. So, and Kevin O'Connell's a good coach. So I think that he is in a good situation. So
they had absolute nobodies producing there last year.
Yeah, literally.
Hopefully he can do it too. Yeah.
When you have KJ Osborne looking okay, that's where you know it's exciting.
Yeah.
So let's rewind and we'll click the other button for the other players and let me get it all set up on the screen and play the draft noise. So you've officially decided on who you want to go with at 104, correct?
I have, yeah.
All right, fancy noise. Here we go. It's so anticlimactic because you can't hear it. But okay, who are we going with at 104?
Well, 104 is Drake May, Patriots quarterback.
Yeah, all the things. I'll fix this.
Yeah.
Whoops. So you were going back, not really back and forth, I guess, between May, but you said you might overthink it and pick Daniels. What ultimately led you to going with Drake May over Jaden Daniels? Because that's the fun debate, right? Like this is the part of the draft where it starts to get a little bit more weird. I think everybody knows it's MHJ and Caleb 1-2, but now you're really shaping the board here. What is it about May that made you want to go with him at 104?
Yeah, I think I believe in him as a prospect after Caleb. I think he's the best QB prospect in this draft. What makes this tough for me is I think the way that Jaden Daniels succeeds, and if he is, if he reaches even close to what his ceiling is, I think he's like an elite fantasy guy.
Right.
But yeah, I just have trust in May to be, a guy in 3 or 4 years, much more than I do Daniels, both in terms of injury concerns and, is he like successful? Is he, still playing?
Right.
Is he someone that the team still wants to build around? So, I think I'm in a spot also where, with Kirk and Purdy, where, my QBs aren't great, but I don't think I am going to win this year. So being able to wait kind of a year and hope that the Pats continue to invest in offense,
right,
both their line and receivers, that hopefully next year, if he's good, he's in a decent situation by then.
Yeah, then
when my team is ready to.
Yeah, so ideally he's starting to ramp up in the right direction at the exact same time that your team is.
Yep.
I know probably not at 104, right? But was there any thought to, I've got Kirk, do I grab Penix? I know you've got picks later on, so feel free to hide or show as much as you want. But was there any thought to try to, again, probably not at 104, but I don't know where your head's at, right? Was there any thought to grabbing Penix here, or was that not even close to being on your radar?
Yeah, definitely not here. Later, if the value's right, I'm potentially interested. I have a million second-round picks, so I'm certainly not opposed to him. Once I forget how many it is in a row, 6 in a row, he could fit in there pretty well. But he's not someone that I'm really a believer in. I honestly have no idea what the Falcons were doing, what the plan is, but I can't imagine he's someone very valuable for fantasy, even when he does play. So, yeah, not someone I'm particularly excited about.
No, that makes sense. That's super fair. How much of it was so Patriots against Redskins, right, or Commanders or whatever? Did that factor in your pick at all? I know that kind of coming into the draft, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, the Patriots and the quarterbacks, blah blah blah." But that regime is kind of now out the window, right? Belichick's not there anymore. It's a whole different ballgame with Rod Mayo. Does that add excitement for you, knowing that it's a new coaching staff who's getting their guy in the first round at number 3? It's not it's not maybe Sean Payton picking Bo Nix at 12 because he needs to do something or they're going to fucking get rid of the guy. Like, does that add extra excitement for you? And because they have a better track record, the Patriots, over the fucking Commanders. So does that excite you at all? Was that not even a factor in the process?
Yeah, not a huge one. I mean, I feel like both front offices or whoever's running the organizations are both relatively unknowns at this point, with the team style of the Commanders and Belichick being gone for the first time in I don't even know how long.
Yeah, a long time.
I feel like both are just relatively unknown. I did really like how the Patriots. I don't have it in front of me, but it seemed like the first 5 or 6 picks in this draft were line or receivers, and they were just kind of alternating between the two. And I really like that mindset where even if they aren't really highly regarded players, I mean, Polk is not someone I would have taken that high, but even if I don't entirely agree with their evaluations, like just that mindset where they're like, okay, we're going to take people, surround him, give him competent players at least.
Yeah, give him some
I'm
pieces.
hoping that'll continue to 2025 as well. We'll see, but
Yeah, because everybody always thinks, your weapons and get the receivers like you see the Bears do with Odunze and all that. But at the same time,
yeah,
man, if you don't have a line, it's over. And I remember, being a lot younger playing, Madden and all that and being like, I just want the 99 overall receivers. I want the
oh
99
yeah,
overall quarterback, and I'm throwing the ball on first, second, third, and fourth down.
of
Um,
course,
and then as I got older, I'm like, offensive line is more important. Defensive line is more important. Run the ball is very important.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
think the Patriots have enough pieces that they can figure something out. And I I personally love the shift of like, you've got Antonio Pierce, you've got Gerard Mayo, you've got D'Amico Ryans who get it maybe more than some of these guys who haven't played as much or, they can build a locker room the right way. Dan Campbell, and I love that that's happening, and I can totally see that happening with the Patriots. So when we take a look
I
at
hope you're right.
yeah, I hope so for your sake too, right? When we take a look at your roster, um, some pretty exciting pieces. I think you look at Drake London. I think you look at Rashid Rice if he can get it together. You look at Laporta, um, but then there's some other pieces where it doesn't feel that way. But your team is very not locked up contract wise. And fun fact for you: so Marvin Harrison signed for a 5-year deal by Flynn. Caleb Williams signed for a 5-year deal by Flynn. Every single rookie last year signed for a 5-year deal. All 13 of them. Malik Neighbors and Drake May, you've chosen 3-year deals for. So you're keeping cap flexibility for the future. Talk me through that process on why you're opting for a 3-year deal versus a 5-year one. Because again, for those of you playing along at home, 4-year deals on the first round aren't real, because your 5th year is an option, so you can cut it whenever you feel like it and just not pick it up. So there's no reason to do a 4-year deal because you could just not pick up the option, or you could pick up the option. It's up to you. So there's really 3 or 5-year deals, and you're the first person on picks number 16 and 17 in the first round to say, yeah, 3 years. Where does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, I think while I hope and kind of trust that both Neighbors and May will be hopefully people that I want to have on my team in 3 or 4 years, I certainly recognize that there's a possibility that that's just not the case. And while I recognize that I may be end up paying them a little bit more because I'm not signing them to a lengthier deal now, I just value being able to get out if I don't want to. I mean, I think in general I prefer all my deals be a bit shorter. The amount of re-signs we have each year, I think at least so far, have felt like plenty. And even if there was a point where it wasn't enough, I mean, I think there's always the trade market where you can ship a guy out who's expiring. So,
Yep.
Yeah, I would just for me, I feel like prioritizing the flexibility of being able to say, all right, you've been terrible for 3 years. Like you're not, I don't want to be stuck paying you whatever that is at that point, $60, $80.
Yeah, it's something like that.
For your fourth and
Let
fifth
me look
years.
at someone. I know I was talking to Rick earlier. So yeah, I mean, it'd be 55 for the 4th year, but if you have to cut that contract, that's still a decent chunk, especially with the increases we put into effect. So that does make sense, and I think it's a fun, experiment, a thought experiment to have. So,
Yeah.
last couple
I didn't
questions.
realize that was the first one
Yeah, first one.
to do that. Yeah.
You're
All
a
right.
trendsetter, sir. Um, So, last couple questions I have for you. You know, take me through where your head is at. How successful has your rebuild gone over this last year? I think it's fun to look at the difference between you and Rick and how you've done your rebuilds. Right, you have lived up to your name and liquidated everything and gotten picks, um, and you are taking people, whereas Rick has done the opposite. He stayed a bit more patient, found other deals that were maybe bigger, more interesting, but at the exact same time has now $600 in cap space. So different approaches, right? But how would you grade yourself on your rebuild so far? Obviously, you said you're not winning this year, or you don't think you're winning this year. You've still got room to go. But on a scale from 1 to 10, how successfully do you think your rebuild has gone to this point?
I feel like I don't. This feels pretty great to me. I mean, I don't know what a 10 means, but it feels like kind of like a 10 to me. I mean, I think, um, yeah. I mean, I think, like I said it earlier, I don't know that I'm winning this year, but I would be surprised if I'm not, extra pick bracket or edge of playoffs this year. And that's assuming I don't decide to spend kind of 25 picks, or that no, you know, second round rookies end up being incredible,
Right.
which I think there's always room for. But yeah, I mean, I think I'll be going into, assuming I'm edge of playoff ish at the end of this year. I'll have 3 firsts, 5 seconds going into next year that I can spend, either to upgrade or, to draft thing back or wherever hole may be. So yeah, I feel great. I think both a team that's going to be competitive in the short term, but also I think because I've shed most of the startup contracts, that there aren't any deals that I really need to get out of at this point.
Right.
And so hopefully not only is it short term viable and competitive, but I'm hoping that I'm able to keep it for a couple years with kind of an influx of cheap rookie talent as well.
Yeah. And the only contracts that really were scary, you changed around, right? You front loaded Michael Pittman on his contract here. You front loaded Brock Purdy after his holdout. So, um, you do have some nice options here for yourself and that flexibility, knowing that, yeah, you're with all these picks, you're going to be tight on money, but 503 next year, 837 the following year. Your cap tremendously opens up. Um, in some of these future years versus some of these other teams. Like I know Morgan's built his team very differently, where he's got tons of depths and tons of pieces for years out. Brownouts like that, where they've got pieces for years. The inaugurals like that, where they have pieces for years. And you have teams like you and I, who I've got nobody on my roster in 2 years. You've got Drake London on your roster in 2 years. So it's kind of interesting, especially since we don't know what the right way to do this is yet. So. Last two questions, three questions really. First one, you kind of already teased it, but what is your team expectation? Are you aiming for extra pick bracket, or are you aiming for playoff bracket?
I don't have a whole lot of expectations about like winning this year. I mean, I think that's the nice thing about these playoffs is they're kind of random. So as long as you get in, there's always a decent chance
Right.
that something crazy happens. I think that's possible. But yeah, I think realistically, like kind of projecting out the regular season, I'm somewhere, and kind of the pieces that I'm able to bring to the 2025 or to the next offseason. I feel pretty good about being able to get it to a place where it's a pretty serious contender for maybe the 2 or 3 years after that.
Yeah, makes sense. And then um, I asked Rick this question. I didn't ask Flynn this question, so I'll be back with a Flynn update when I talk to Morgan. But do you consider your team to have any rivals? I know it's kind of a weird question, especially when last year you were like, I'm here for all the losses. So there's nobody that you're really trying to have that competitive rivalry with. But right. But is there any team that you look at and you consider a rival in your eyes?
No, not so much. I mean, I don't know that I've really tried to win games. I mean, that I've been super invested in
Right.
winning games up until this year, and so I don't think I was happy
Yeah, you're
how I
happy
ended
losing,
last year.
right?
Right. And I know with division realignment coming up that it's like, okay, maybe I'm competing with someone in our division for a spot this year, but like it's probably not going to be a long term
Right.
kind of rivalry. So no, not really.
Sweet. And I figured, but more just a curiosity. There's rhyme. There's reason to the rhyme or whatever it is. That's. But yeah, I just thought of another great question and I lost it. I said I had three questions. It was supposed to be final thoughts. Um, oh, it was such a good question. Something we touched on. So, rival. Blah blah blah. Where are you gonna end? I don't know. It was
Division
great.
realignment.
No. Damn. It was such a good question. You were gonna say, "Damn, that was a good question." That's how good of a question it was.
It was that good.
No,
Wow.
it definitely wasn't that good, but it was a good question. Man, I'm gonna have to like I'll ask, if I when I remember, I'll ask it in the league chat or something like that for you to
Yeah,
answer.
yeah, yeah.
But damn, it sucks. Oh well. Any final thoughts? Anything else you want to talk about? Go over. Oh my God, I remember. Okay, super briefly, 102 and 10. So you went back to 104 from
Oh yeah.
102. How did that come into fruition? I don't know if you watched the Flynn interview. He kind of said that he was happy getting 311 back. He probably would have done it without it. But where did that trade talk come from? Is that something he initiated? Is that something you initiated? Are you just working the phones? Because you mentioned Project, you mentioned Morgan, you mentioned Flynn, or the trade happened with Flynn. Are you just is everything open for business with you? Um, and how did that trade come into to happening for 102?
Yeah. Yeah. I find trading around drafts to be one of the most enjoyable times to do trades. I think it's like a lot of people have different ideas of how they want to work or how they want to build teams and where they want to pick from. So I think it's for me. I think it's one of the most fun times to kind of move around.
Yeah.
That specific trade, he messaged me about. I knew he was a Cardinals fan and wanted Harrison. It was like a day or two after. We got it done pretty quickly right after the draft.
Yeah.
Um, and I can't remember exactly where the structure of the trade came from, but I said something about wanting a 25 first to move up, and I said like I would add something small. And I think in his mind, he was like, "Here, how about this?" And he threw on the three. And I think for me, I was thinking like a later second to mid second, and then when I saw the three, I was like, "Okay, yeah,
Oh
that's
yeah. Yeah.
uh, sure, sure, that works for me." I don't know. I mean, I think it's something that both of us were quite happy with. I know he got his guy.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm pretty happy with Neighbors. I don't see him that far off of what Marvin Harrison is. So to get an extra first on top of that is I'm very happy with.
Yeah. One of those
Yeah,
trades where
that was
like
one. It was like three messages total.
yeah, oh, that's always nice too. I
Yeah.
think for the most part, everybody in our league is pretty enjoyable to trade with. There are some people who maybe not so much. I won't name any names, but I think for the most part, people are pretty amicable. There's no assholes, at least when it comes to trading. There, I
No,
mean,
no.
in other leagues where you send a person and they try to devalue the person on your team that they want, so you've got to make it a first because they're not good enough anymore. You're like, why are you? I don't think anybody in our league does that, which is nice. I mean, there's definitely
Yeah,
people
yeah,
who are trickier to trade with, who are more stonewally, um, as opposed to the addicts like I am. But that is nice. So, all right, for real this time,
nobody does
Annie.
the
Oh, go ahead.
nobody does the convincing. Like you really should do this because
Yeah,
like I'm telling you how to. Yeah, yeah, none of that.
yeah, because that's the worst. Any
Yeah.
final thoughts for real this time? Up next is 105 with Morgan, and we'll talk in some capacity with you when we get those picks from you later on. But any final thoughts here before we wrap this up?
Um, as you all may have noticed, I have quite a few seconds, and would love to get into kind of the end of the first round. So anyone who has picks there, if you want to come chat, I'm interested.
He's your guy. Who has those picks? I know K Migs is at 112, Morgan's at 113, Allen's now there, Flynn
And
again, Morgan.
yep,
Yeah, so it's almost funny how the board goes. It's you, Morgan, Project, you, Morgan, Flynn, Allen. So Couple names there, but a couple repeating ones. So
Pretty
we'll have to,
concentrated. Yeah.
yeah, we'll have to see what happens. All right, that does it for us. Hope this gets out in time for you guys to see it tonight as opposed to tomorrow. But if not, happy Tuesday. Thanks for playing along and coming up with. Thanks for coming up with that so I can play along. And Morgan, we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.